Hey, fellow dads, Gerald, Mr. BPOZ here, author of the Good Dad blog and newsletter, as well as the Dad First course. And I'm so happy to be back. I decided to start this freaking podcast on a whim. Actually, today is the first episode. So if you're hearing this, thank you. But I feel like there needs to be a real voice speaking to dads. I believe that dads are the cornerstone of society. They are the template. Maybe not the template, right? I think I may be searching for too big of words, but I think they are the tempo, right? They have such a huge impact on how the world is in the future because as dads, our nurturing style is from behind, pushing our kids forward, teaching our kids to believe in themselves. Much different than moms. I'm not saying that ours is better because I don't believe that. I believe that alongside a mother's love, a dad's love is perfect. And I also believe that alongside a dad's love, a mom's love is perfect as well. It balances each other. And I believe that our roles as fathers are to encourage our children, help them feel safe, and to encourage our children that they can accomplish the great things that our world is going to require of them. And someone needs to help strengthen the dads. And that's what I hope to do with this podcast and my blog and my newsletter and everything else. So I'm so excited to be on this podcast. It's a little bit weird for me because this is my first podcast that I'm doing completely by myself, where most of the time I'm on my podcast with my wife. I have a separate podcast called Yes We Fight where we talk about marriage. So clearly I got to have somebody else there. This one, not so much. It's just me. It's just me. It's kind of weird, but I think I can handle it. We got some things coming up for you, and I want to kind of theme my content as I put it out. And this month, considering that it is the first week of February, a lot of families are discussing their finances with tax returns coming. I have a friend of mine who I hope to get on the show to talk to you guys in our live group on Facebook. We have a Facebook group called the Good Dads Club where we will go live and discuss, we'll discuss the intricacies of tax prep, what to look forward to, what you should be aware of in regards to your taxes and things like that. And we're going to break that up into 2 sessions. We'll have him on in the next week or two to talk about taxes for, W-2 people. That means the people that get up every single day and go to work, as well as in April when a lot of the people who own businesses or are entrepreneurs who have to pay taxes, they're going to be filing their taxes later on into the year. So we'll get our CPA on for that. But right now we're doing a whole series on finances and budgeting strategies for our households because I have a system called the FPM self-care model, right? And the F stands for finances because in my dealings with men and my dealings with dads who are just like me, those 3 things go hand in hand. Because they view themselves as providers, if their money isn't right, they aren't right. Their mental goes to waste. Maybe they can get to the gym and work out. Maybe they can't. Those things are so intertwined. So I want to make sure that we talk about our finances and budgeting and things like that. It's so important. There are a handful of things I do want you to know prior to talking about the different types of budgets, right? The first thing is that any budget that you come across, find, or want to implement into your household, you gotta have a conversation with your significant other. It doesn't matter how foolproof your budget is. If your wife isn't on board, then you don't actually have a plan. You just have this really, really good idea But if the other person isn't on board, she's not going to do the freaking work that is required for it to be successful. All it's going to do is create tension and problems and issues, and that's a bunch of shit that you don't want. What's the other thing that I wrote it down here, so I'm kind of looking into it. Um, oh, make sure that whatever plan that you have, you check in with it and you reassess it as often as possible. You make changes as often as possible. I know my wife and I, we talk about finances all the time when it's a top priority. So if finances are a big deal in our house, we'll talk about it every single night before we go to bed. But most of the time we talk about it once a month. And in that month, we talk about what we set out to accomplish and what we did or didn't accomplish, what we are going to continue on into the next month, what we're going to leave behind because it isn't actually applicable to what we want to do in life, because our needs change, right? Our needs are always going to change. So don't stress it, but you got to make sure that you reassess your situation, because if you don't, then it's going to catch you by surprise and that'll destroy your whole household. The third one that you have to understand is that money is just a tool. All right. You are not a better dad because you make a bunch of money, and you are not a bad dad because you're struggling financially. This happens to the best of us. Most of the time, we would have to contribute a little bit of luck to our financial situations. And because you were unlucky or too lucky doesn't necessarily mean that you're better than anyone else. Align your principles, align with your principles, and then allow money to help you accomplish your principles. Money is a tool. It is not the reason for the season. It's not the reason for everything. Every time you hear somebody say they bless, it's because of money. But I can tell you that it isn't always about money, because money isn't all of that. It's just a story. And what you tell yourself about money holds way more true than any level of society. And a lot of that is determined on society. So don't allow society to dictate what is success for you as it pertains to money. So there's a handful of strategies that I want to discuss before I let you go. I'm not going to take too much of your time because I don't believe I need to. There are 5 different types of budgets. I'm just going to go over them briefly that I have. I have a blog about this if you want to read the blog, or a YouTube video that you can go in and watch to get the details. But the strategy that we're going to discuss is the 50-30-20 budget. It's basically a system that allows you to separate your money. 50% of your money goes towards living expenses. That's housing, housing, lights, food, clothing, shelter, all that stuff. 20% of it is actually spent on savings, investments, retirement. And then 30% is literally discretionary income. This is a great strategy for like retired dads, or dads with who are making a boatload of money or have a lot of discretionary income, to where, spending 30% of that, the rest of 30% of their income won't, send their lives into a loop because they've cut into their, living expenses budget or something like that. So that's for those types of people. The second one is the cash budget. It's the old school granny purse billfold budget system, right? You know how much your bills cost. You know how much you put on them every single month. You pull that cash out and then you put it into folders, a jar, whatever is the best vessel for you. You put them in those, and when it's time to pay the bill, you go to your little cabinet or your little money locker, you grab your envelope that says light bill, and you take it and you go down to the grocery store and you get you a money order made, and you pay your light bill or your cable bill or your cell phone bill or your grocery bill or whatever it may be. But it's all cash and it's all handled in advance. It is a great strategy for simplicity. It doesn't help everyone, but it's definitely good for dads that want to live off the grid, that want to, reduce their technology imprint or stay away from spreadsheets and things like that. So it's definitely good for someone. It's not necessarily my favorite. Like that's some old primitive shit, but I still think that it's a good system for someone that's just starting. It's definitely a great system for dads who want to introduce the budgeting concept into their families by teaching their kids some ideas about how to budget their money. Give them a cash allowance and have them separate their money in an organized way that addresses all of their needs and wants and desires. The third budget strategy is called the zero sum budget. That's kind of like the Dave Ramsey budget, which is the spend every dollar budget, right? Which is you understand for the most part how much money you make on a monthly basis, as well as how much your bills are. Any that gets paid off first, and the rest goes towards debt or savings, and that's it. So you factor in everything. You factor in how much in the dollar amount that you're going to spend on entertainment or books or clothing or whatever it may be. Those things get paid off, and you're left every single month with $0 going into the next month. I love that particular strategy. It's actually the strategy my wife and I use is every month. We use the Every Dollar app. I'm not plugging Dave Ramsey. Get it if you want it. It's just been very beneficial for us to be able to see our money in advance. And because we do have all the technology, it's easy for us to be on the same page without actually having to have conversation. She could look right on the app and say, hey, here is where I'm going to spend the money at, or here's the items that we're going to put this money towards, because it's already sectioned out in the month in advance. The fourth one is called reverse budgeting. I don't know why they give these budgets all these weird ass names sometimes. It's literally just the pay yourself first budget, right? It's taking into consideration that your savings are just as important as your bills. So you factor in your savings into your living expenses so that those get taken care of first before you ever find out what your discretionary income is. You pay yourself first, you pay all your stuff off, and anything left over you can spend, however you want. The last one, forgive me if I mispronounce this, it's called the Kikibo method. It's basically Japanese for mindful budgeting. It marries mindfulness, obviously, with how we spend our money. And I think that's genius. I may have to create a few spreadsheets or a few handouts that kind of go over how this looks, but it forces you to answer questions like, can I afford this? Will I actually use this? It's kind of similar to like Marie Kondo. Dads, if you don't know who Marie Kondo is, go ask your wife. I'm pretty sure she knows, but she is like the Japanese house hacker, cleaner upper lady or something like that, organizer, professional organizer. And her big question is, does it make you happy? And those are some of those same questions that we ask about our purchases. Does this purchase actually make us happy, or is it for some other reason? Can I afford it? Will I use it in 6 months? Will I use it in a year? If I didn't buy it, would it impact my current state of living? If I bought it in 4 months, would it? So there's all these questions that are asked along the lines of your expenses and your income so that you can really be engaged in those, like really just be engaged in and the thought process behind your money. It's kind of like the book, The Psychology of Money, one of my favorite books on money. And it basically breaks down, that money is more than just dollars and cents, right? We have a full belief system about money. We have an understanding as to what money is for, what money can do, how it can change our lives. And we were told these stories, or whether they were demonstrated to us in our lives, but we were told these stories. But it's our choice on if we want to actually believe those stories and rewrite the history of it, because you don't have to believe that money is everything. because it isn't. It's just a tool. It is just a tool. So I hope that this little bit of information in this new format is beneficial for you. Please tap into all the avenues that we're sharing information, whether that is on YouTube, on in our Facebook group, the Good Dads Club, or the blog, the Good Dads blog, whatever it is. Just tap in, see what we're doing, see what we're up to, because we truly believe that the world is a better place with better men in it, and better men make better dads and better husbands. So until then, this has been Hey Fellow Dads with Gerald, Mr. BPOZ Mays, and we'll see you next time.